Kids and cadets, welcome back to Tommy Time. I appreciate you coming out. I recently did a video. I bought 3 units for $40. I ended up getting this 2010 yard machine in the deal. This thing's a double turd. We're going to work on this today. You know how I love challenges. So in that group was this commercial snapper. You guys have been commenting on what I need to do to get the drive system operating on this. And then I also got this blower for 10, and then excuse me, this was 20. If I got it for 10, I'd be really happy. This double turd was the other $10 machine. So first thing this morning didn't start out too good. I walked through my gate to the backyard and I was bombarded with yellow jackets or yellow hornets. One ended up getting me right there. I was able to swat the others away, but the one that got me wouldn't let go. I had to pick them off. So kind of swollen here from that bee sting. I couldn't let that happen in the near future, so I had to give them a little motivation to leave the area permanently. This carb cleaner works great on a hornet's nest. They really don't like carb cleaner. I wasn't about to have anything else swell up on me anyway, so that was taken care of. So kind of looked at this machine. Let's discuss model numbers and all that jazz first. It's an MTD made yard machine. That's the MTD number. The engine has a build date, February 15th, 2010. This is the engine number. The safety brake cable worked, but it was really rusty. If you need to change yours, that's the number. What I ended up doing was removing the cable and oiling it up, and the cable seems to function fine now, so I won't have to mess with it. I just wanted to get the cable squared away so I wasn't messing with that when I'm trying to start the unit. As you recall, looking at this thing, it had orange juice for fuel, which is never a good thing. You can see all that orange juice. So let's flip this over and you can see the underside. I think this thing sat in a small lake somewhere, retention pond, or a dike, or a canal, or a river, possibly a stream. Could even have sat in the Gulf of Mexico. So we'll discuss oil as well, because I had this thing on its side earlier to change out the oil. I'll discuss that. But look at this thing, all that surface rust on this. Blade doesn't look terribly bad as far as wear is concerned. There's some meat on it, but look at all that rust. If I ever had to take an adjuster off, I would not be able to do it. This thing here is all, there's nothing that resembles the head of a nut here. It's a rounded off piece of metal. So we're going to try to start this thing. I know you think I'm crazy for even looking at this. This wheel is bound up. This hub is rusted. Somebody's tried to move it and crack the hub here. You can see the big split here. I think I can salvage it if I can break that rust free. That's going to be a challenge because that's rusted. That's another rusted nut. So I happened to look at the oil level, as I always do, and if you've ever been to McDonald's and had a chocolate milkshake, the tip of the dipstick had that white foamy chocolate shake appearance, and what that is oil and water mixing up, and you have a little shake like consistency. So I turned this on its side, got rid of that little bit of shake material, and then I went ahead and put used oil in this just to start it. I didn't want to start it with a crankcase with water in it. That would do damage to the bearings. So used oil is better than no oil. So we're off to a good start so far on this thing, just doing a little prep to try to motivate it into action. 22-inch deck, nice wide metal deck. So let's try removing the air filter cover. Let's see if we can motivate this thing externally. And then we'll take it from there. Okay, I haven't had that happen before. This thing is rusted shut. Well, of course it is. The whole thing is rusted shut. So we're going to have to, I'm thinking, can I squirt some starter fluid or carb cleaner up here, but that filter's all caked up and falling apart. So that's a no-go. Let's remove the plug and direct inject the old-fashioned way. That's how I used to do it as a kid. Remove the plug and put a couple of drops of gas right into the cylinder. A lot of rust here on the plug. Of course, there's a lot of rust on the plug. Wet. Plug's got a lot of moisture on it. Let me pull it over a few times, see if anything comes out. So let me get another plug. We don't want to start off on a bad note with a wet, watery plug. That's going to do us no good, and that's not going to help us either. Let me grab another RJ19LM. So I got another Champion plug. It's dry, it's used. For the fun of it, let's just ground out this plug against the head and see if we got spark. Okay, I do see spark. So let's give it a really good dose of carb cleaner, highly flammable. Okay, that was like a triple shot of that stuff. If we can get any action, if this thing has compression, I have a secondary carburetor kit. We can put that together and put it on. We won't even mess with this. We'll take this whole thing off, and I'll have to apple cider vinegar that tank once I get the orange juice out of there. Okay, it kicked off. Let's give it another shot. Hopefully that was enough to burn off any moisture that was on the cylinder. What I could have done is poured some used gas in the cylinder, swished it around, danced it around. Oh, look at that. That's what we're messing with. Look at all that. Oh, it's gritty too. Yeah, I'm just smelling it. It is the carb cleaner, but look at all that grittiness, sand or rust. We may have some ring issue. If it got enough water in there, the rings could be rusted up. So this thing may be too far gone to salvage. Let me blow the plug out with some compressed air. Okay, let's try this again. It sounded kind of promising. It kicked off. Okay, I really gave it a triple shot of that stuff. George Thorogood in the Delaware Destroyers. He would agree a triple shot of that stuff is sometime required. Well, holy crap on that one. I'm going to drink to that. The green lady this morning helped me with the pain. That caffeine kind of took my mind off of the throbbing finger. The green lady sometimes is helpful in such situations. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, now we're cooking with fire. So this thing wanted to run on water, surprisingly. Did you hear that? Now that's something to write home about. Well, I say we continue on with this fine beauty. Let me bring you up to the tailgate. I'll show you what I have laid out here. I was hoping for positive results. So why don't we remove this thing first. 10 out here to hold it on that bracket, and then I use a 1/2 inch drive on the main bolt. I got to remove it all as one because this is rusted. Usually I remove this to see what I'm doing. Okay, that was on there pretty tight. This thing may never have been disassembled since it left the MTD factory in Cleveland, Ohio, 44136. Fine people in Cleveland, they really know how to put together fine machinery at a reasonable price. Okay, let's keep moving here. It's time for serious small engine repairs. I got to figure out what to do with this orange juice. I have a container here. I wouldn't recommend drinking it. Okay, let's see if we can get after the linkage with this being so tight. I can try to manipulate it. I think I can. Okay, somebody's been in here. Johnny, the homeowner's been in here. This was on the breather tube, and that's, I don't know what that came off of. Maybe one of you guys recognize this. It should be a 90 elbow in that size, not this thing. Okay, let's get you over here on the bench. Let's get serious. I think first things first, I'm just curious about orange juice. I always like a good laugh. So let's move some things around. Get my workstation ready. Just a bleach container that's been cut in half. So did they submerge this thing, or was it just sitting outside? I thought it was in a barn until I saw this orange fuel. I'm wondering if they ran this thing into a puddle. %100% water. Wow. Well, we know the tank held up. If it had pinholes, it would have all leaked out. I think this one may be salvageable, but the apple cider vinegar has a tendency to eat away the rust. If it eats enough of it away, it'll start creating pinholes. Okay, you get the big picture. Big orange juice container. We'll mess with that later. Let's get serious on rebuilding a carburetor for this. So as you recall, Easter Sunday I messed around with this tank. I ended up sealing it with red coat. I used some AB compound here to seal up the pinholes. After I apple cider vinegared a couple pinholes emerged, I just used nail polish to stop the red coat from dripping through. Not that it would have mattered, it would have hardened and created a seal here, but I just used some nail polish. So this has been drying for a while now. I set it out in the sun. I really goobered it up in there. It's got a nice thick coat of red coat. So I'll discuss these plastic carburetors. These plastic carbs will go on a Classic, a Sprint, or a Quattro. It's all this style plastic carburetor. This is an aftermarket, as you can see. And did I lose something? The diaphragm spring, I think, sprung out. You get a bag with new screws, the diaphragm kit, This is 3-part numbers. There's probably 6 different numbers, but you'll get a hit on any one of these. These are about 10 to 12 each. You can actually buy the whole assembly here for 23 to 25. You get a new tank. The carb is already mounted. All you got to do is put it on and go. That's 25 if you didn't want to mess with redoing your tank. So I swear there should be a diaphragm spring, and I thought I saw something out of the corner of my eye pop off of this thing. It definitely requires that spring. So that's going to be a bummer. That'll be a total bummer if that... Oh, we got it. It went into my... I had a drip pan down here. That spring sprung, and that would have been a bad deal. It goes on here. We'll confirm that, but that's the spring for the fuel pumpage. So I probably should take the old one apart to show you. Maybe we will if we got time, but usually the older style has a little screen that goes over this. This has a screen built in. This is your pickup. This is the main jet in there. Fuel pump. This is what the 90 should look like. Not the thing that was on it, or whatever I did with it. Here it is. That's not the right boot. This is the right 90-degree boot. Okay, let's get busy here. You want to make sure your little fuel pocket here is clean. This is where your jet sits, and it picks up from here. So if there's any water or debris, you're going to clog up your little jet. Even with the screen here, it's going to saturate your screen and prevent any fuel from being picked up. Make sure this is clean. So wouldn't it be a hoot if this thing starts with a new carburetor? I'd be Hootie the Owl. Okay, so since I don't have a secondary paper jet, normally what I would do is go down paper, the rubber, and then paper on top. But since I'm using a fresh kit and I haven't disassembled that other one yet, I'm just going to take a razor and draw a line here. As you can see, the holes, they're much closer together. Here's the furthest span, and what happens is the little rubber diaphragm starts to pull in here, and it'll let unmetered air into the carb. If you take a razor and just scratch this, or you could use an awl and scratch that up, the rubber kind of hooks on that metal that you've scuffed up, and it keeps the rubber from being pulled in. If you take enough of these apart, you'll see on the back side when you take it apart, the rubber will appear wavy. Let's actually look at the orange juice contraption and see if we can see that. This one looks pretty straight, but you'd look back here and you might see a wavy diaphragm. Well, I do see right there, if you can see that. Here, I'll show you, get my little pointer. Can you see that right there? The diaphragm's a little bit wavy in one area. So diaphragm down, paper on top. So we got to steal the O-ring and the keeper, I think. Or does this come with it? No, this comes with one, so I don't have to worry about it. I just have to make sure I remove the O-ring and the keeper on the pickup tube of this yard machine. That came off or stayed on. Okay, let's get busy. Just going to take a razor, draw a line here in the aluminum. Just something for this rubber gasket to grab onto. Something like that. So rubber goes down. Something like that. Line it all up. Paper gasket on top. Something like that. And here's your spring pump. This is your fuel pump back there. So I have it lined up correctly. Bulb faces you. Prime it from the front. It's nice they give you new screws for new Phillips head screws. So this may be a short video. I got fuel nearby. We'll pop this thing on. Takes but a minute. The only thing I won't have an air filter cover to start it. But I washed off the driveway last night. So the driveway should be pretty clean. I won't be kicking up a lot of sand and dust. So I'm just going to get these started and then do my crisscross applesauce. You don't want to do them in a clockwise or counterclockwise rotation. You want to alternate back and forth. To get an even seal on the gasket. Oh, they gave you an extra one. Imagine that. Those China folks are awesome. You hardly ever get anything extra. Well, that was a bonus. So I'm going to bring these down, snug them all the way around first, and then we'll start tightening them. They're going in a little tight just because they've painted these. So I'm breaking through that paint. Okay, I'm getting them all tight. Doesn't matter now about a pattern. I just got to get them all snug and then I can start. And this one here is really tight. Okay, snugged down. Okay, just pick any corner. I'm going to start with this corner back here. Give that a little snug, come down to this corner. Give that one a little snug, back up here to this corner. Snuggy wuggy, come down here to this one. Snug, and then back to this middle one, snug. Start over again, same procedure. This corner, that's snug, come down to this corner. Snug, up to here, this corner, that one's snug. Back down, and then the lonesome screw there. That's all alone, he's snug. So what I like to do is put a little fuel in it now and prime it on the bench. Make sure I have a good seal. That way, if there's any issues with it not being tight enough, I can go ahead and rectify it. up here and I don't have to bend down and remove everything a second time. So let me put a little fuel in here. We may have to put something over this when we start it. So if we get this thing to start, that'll be half the battle. The other stuff will be an issue, getting that wheel to turn, getting that blade off. If I can even get the blade off, I may have to sharpen it in place. So we're not out of the woods yet. I don't want to use this cap. It's all full of water. I actually ordered 4 of these last night just because I got a couple of these tanks without caps. They're about $4.50 each because I bought 4. So prime this. You're going to have air for the first couple of primes. Now I can start feeling it get squishy. If you look down the throat of the carb here, you'll see a jet of fuel coming out of here. I hope. It is coming out, but it's not squirting terribly far. It's kind of just dribbling out. If I got enough gas in there, it looks like I got enough gas. So maybe I'll tighten up these screws one more time. Maybe we got an air leak. Start there and just go backwards. See if that helped. Maybe I do need to double gasket it. I mean, it is priming, but it's not really shooting a big stream. If it's working correctly, these things will shoot straight into the intake. You can see it's wet down there. It's just kind of dribbling out of the primer bulb. So that stinks. I'm wondering if the primer bulb was fully seated. It looks like it is. I don't think that's an issue. I thought we had done something there because it seemed to want to prime. I say we just put it on and see if the thing idles, and then I'll deal with this later. What I may do is pull it apart and double gasket this thing. But for right now, it is spitting up a little fuel. Enough where you pull it over, that fuel's going to slowly get pulled into the carb to start. I can hear not water, I can hear air being pulled from somewhere. Okay, let's turn you back around, start this procedure over again. We're still double turning it. Remove my O-ring and keeper. That goes with the other carburetor. Save that. Take a rag and maybe clean up this plastic intake tube. Get rid of some of this dirt. give this thing a flying chance. So I mentioned before, you got the classic Sprint and Quattro styles. What makes them different is the spring assembly. Some have a single spring. This has got a double spring. So what varies is your setup here. The engine design is basically the same, and the carburetor here is the same. They all use this single throttle wafer with the primer bulb to get them going. I seem to be able to still work efficiently with a swollen finger. Okay, put my 10 out here on the bracket. Oh, my 90. Glad you told me about that. The breather 90. Okay, that's on. So somebody had been in here messing around. They looks like they threw on whatever they could find for an elbow. So hopefully this thing has compression like we discussed, with all that moisture that was in the cylinder. This is kind of rusty here. What I may do is put a little oil on this thing. It's going in tight. That, and I'm going to just loosen this thing up a tad so I can manipulate this. Let me dip it in some oil. I don't want to cross thread the tank here. Okay, that's much better. If it doesn't go in, loosen up your first connecting point here. Get them all started and then tighten down at the end. An old mechanic's trick. Okay, that's on. One more here. Okay, let's start priming this. Yeah, it's just dribbling out. I'll do it a few times to really fill the intake with some raw fuel. And maybe put a rag. Put a rag here. Okay, let's try it. So that worked out well. I hope you could hear it running. So totally psyched that this piece of junk started with the aftermarket carb rebuilt tank. So what I'm going to do is take this off probably when you kids have gone to lunch and see why this thing isn't priming. I'll probably use another paper gasket on it. So we're nearly at 45 minutes. I think this video is probably long enough. I had thought maybe I'll disassemble this juice machine. Maybe I'll do that real quick just to show you what this thing looked like. But I don't know if I can get I probably can't do it because it'd be hard to get the screws out. I can't get this out. I'd have to let this sit for a while with some penetrant oil on it. Squirt some down the shaft, which I can reach by opening the throttle here. The bolt goes right down the center of the intake. If I squirt moose piss down there, it's going to follow the threads all the way down and loosen up. So I'll do that. It would have been nice to show you the top of the tank. I'm sure it was full of orange juice in the fuel pickup. Anyway, appreciate you coming out. Tip your waitress and wait staff. Thanks again. This is what we are working on today, the MTD. Engine number, and that's the cable if you've got to replace it. I'm going to drink to the green lady. We had some success today. Thanks. Thanks for coming out. I didn't think there was much hope for this 2010, but it seems to have done us right today. Well, I think I mentioned I cleaned up the deck. I just degreased it and hosed that off after the last video. Maybe I'll go a little bit deeper with this. Although there's no shiny paint on this thing, the paint's all worn out. That's the best it's going to produce. Anyway, if you see your wait staff, don't forget to tip them today. Thanks. Thanks again.